So, welcome to this session talking about how to successfully convert to S/4HANA using Signavio and Cloud ALM. So, after at least I have been talking a lot about theory in the morning, the idea of this session is to mainly go through a few demos to show you how this works in reality, so that you also get the feeling that what I've been talking about in the morning, what Tim has been talking about in his session before directly on Cloud ALM, that all of these things are actually all there, right? So, and we are doing it together, Tim and myself, as a joint presentation. Prior to moving into the presentation, maybe just out of curiosity, I mean, who of you in the room is already on S4? Okay, a lot to do. Who started to move on to S4? At least a couple of votings. So then we hope, of course, that with this session today we can change the picture a little bit. So if you're coming back next year, that a lot more hands are going up saying we have started to go to S4. So, as I said, Uwe Grigoleit, I'm presenting this morning, and Tim, we would like to lead you through the session today. So, I don't want to repeat these slides here. I've been showing them in the morning why to go to S4. Hopefully, those in the group here that are not yet on the journey have picked up some ideas why to do this and why to go there, and why to at the end come to this picture here to our new variant, our new cloud ERP S/4HANA, and the business technology platform underneath. And what we would like to show you in this session today is a little bit in a few set of demos how this really could look like, right? So I used a similar picture this morning, and our idea as SAP is, of course, now that we really would like to close and use this infinity loop here, right? We really would like to give you tools with which you can analyze, enhance, design your processes from a process perspective, analyzing how the things are running today, identifying bottlenecks, and then also working on the bottlenecks, and how you can take that then right away into the implementation of your product supported by the Cloud ALM capability. And then even more, I think this is what we are not covering today, how you then can incorporate it later on into automated testing, because of course one thing is to implement S/4HANA once. The other thing is, of course, also to keep it up to date, and for that, of course, directly implementing the respective automated testings is of course very important, because that also is something that is, so to say, really very important for me. I mean, I'm driving these moves to S/4HANA since we launched the product back in 2015, and there's also one number that is worrying me, and this is that the vast majority of the customers that moved to S/4HANA over the past 7 years or 8 years are still on the initial release that they went onto when they moved to S/4HANA. And that's, of course, something that is also not what we would like to see, or what we would like to have, because I mean, we brought out every year a new release of S/4HANA. With the 2023 release this year, we are going to a 2-year release cycle. But of course, we also would like to encourage you to really follow us on this release cycle, because many new things are coming. And so this is why it is also so important to really not only initially move to S/4HANA, but then also keep the pace up in the cloud. As I said also in the morning, we will do it for you. But of course, when you're running it on premise, then you still have to do it by your own. And but it's really worthwhile to follow these releases, and this is why then also this right-hand cycle, of course, is getting so important. So with that, let me move over to from the slides to the praxis. So this is the same loop that you have seen before, and now we would like to really look into how we are now moving through the steps of analyze, deploy and enhance these processes. So what you're seeing here is all of this. What you're seeing here is really right-away functionality. There's one future functionality I will also show a little bit later on, but this is then marked explicitly. So when we are starting with the analyze, then let's look into how we are scanning your processes in the system. So this is now when you have run the process insights analysis, it comes back with that screen here, and now you can of course decide how you would like to look into the data. Do you want to look at the end-to-end processes? And you can select an end-to-end process, like here, source to pay, and then you see always here, also like for the complete view as well, you see how many process flows are coming out of the analysis, and you can also identify this. The system is also saying which are the process flows that are coming up with a lot of blockers that have been identified. So out of the 22 process flows, 20 are coming with 3 or more blockers. So with this customer example here, so to say, there's really something to do. If we are now moving on, then we are seeing here a list of all the process flows that have been identified. So I can already in this list here get some nice information, like how many blockers I'm having, what is the typical completion rate of that process in my company, right? So that's also always a good indicator. If we're having a completion rate of 5%, then most likely either the process is not needed anymore, then I can also deprecate it, or there's something wrong with the process. So let's select one process here. And this is a picture similar to the one I have shown in the keynote today. So this is now the purchase order creation process, and here I'm having the first step, the creation of the purchase order items, the goods received, and then of course the supplier invoices created. So really classical purchase to pay scenario. And I'm seeing nicely here what is the time that I need from purchase order created to goods received created, and what is the time that is then there to pay the supplier. Of course, this is a time you typically rather would like to do as long as possible, because you would like to pay the supplier as late as possible, right, to keep your cash flow optimized. This is something you would rather like to have short, because you would like to have an efficient workflow from the ordering to the reception of the goods. And then you can also move into the details here. So these are all the blockers that have been identified. So obviously I've been taking an example here where there's really something to do. So the process analysis identified some for example here, that quite some purchase order items, 792 are currently blocked. A lot of purchase order items have been initially created and then deleted afterwards. Could be a simple mistyping, so to say, but 512 mistypings is of course quite a lot. So you see already on these examples, and they are of course then grouped according to these 3 process steps here. You're seeing that they are really hitting on very important points, and by double click on each and every one of these items, we will also see it now then, you can dig into some more details around these items. So this is a view on the process flows. We will also then, in the course of the presentation, we will also go into performance indicators, but we will also go into the correction and innovation recommendations. Because one important thing is, of course, to look at the process and identify where do I have challenges. The main topic we would like to investigate here is, of course, which of these challenges I can solve by moving to S4, and which of these challenges I can also solve by corrections of my or optimizations of my process, right? So these are then the 2 additional dimensions we would like to look at. If I'm selecting one of such processes here, I can also now so to say link it to benchmarks, right? So I can look into this process. So this is now the goods received, and here I'm getting details on the goods received and the completion rate. What I can do now is I can look at this data according to different grouping criteria, right? For instance, I can look at the goods received distribution by material type, right? So the completion of the process for the finished products and for the raw materials seems to be quite okay because it's above the average, but the two processes or material type related processes that are having the lowest completion rate are service materials or service materials and semi-finished products, right? So this is how you can now dig into the data to analyze a little bit more where the problem is. Another classical separation of data now is, of course, digging down into the purchase organization. So this company has two purchase organizations, and we are seeing also a little bit of a difference between the two of them. Next step is also looking at the monetary value, right? Because here you're seeing that the purchasing organization with the lowest completion rate is the RX01. If you're looking at the monetary value, there's one good topic that is coming out of it, because you're seeing that it is at least the purchasing unit that is contributing only a fraction of the total purchasing value. Right? So this is also something you're getting in this solution here, so that you're not only looking, so to say, at quantities like how many times a process has been failing or has been not completed, but you can then also link it to the value, which is of course then also a very important decision criteria, helping you to decide on what to do around that. So now we are going to plug and gain, and those who have been in the session before heard about that already. Plug and gain, this is all the idea about now looking at one process and identifying in how many different variations this process has been executed. So you're seeing this already in this picture here, and of course you can now change a little bit the display of the pictures, but you're seeing that this is a process with many variations, and we are also seeing on this score here, which is benchmarking also against benchmarking data we have in our database, that definitely this company here, in terms of the number of variations for this process, is definitely not the benchmark, but far below the benchmark. What I can do now is I can now go through all of these variations. Here you're seeing the different variants, and you're also seeing how many times they are appearing. So I can now go through all of these variants, identify them, and also try to improve them. When it comes to improving now many variants and many fold of variants that I'm having, also here the solution is providing some support, because what I'm seeing here is that for the different steps that I'm having in these variants, the system is always benchmarking each and every individual step again against benchmarks that we are having from all of the data that we are having in the system. And that allows you now, because when you're looking at 100 variants, of course the question is with which variant should I start, and which variant is really critical versus which is acceptable, not perfect, but acceptable to work on. And this is how these tiles here are helping you to identify really, again, with the green, orange and red indicators, what are the things you should really focus on in your next steps with the solution. You can also go then a little bit more into the analysis of the processes. So here we are seeing that that process with the many variants. And you can now dig a little bit deeper into it. Let's jump over that. Of course, you can always change the perspective here. But you can now also look at different KPIs again that are related to this process, right? So, for instance, and I was bringing that already before a little bit, days payable outstanding, right? So This is now here 36 days for this company. 55 days is the benchmark. So there is, and we have seen it already in the picture before. So this company is definitely paying their suppliers a little bit too early. They could optimize their working capital definitely by paying later. And also, you can even analyze a lot more indicators. So this is now the purchase request creation to purchase order step. You always see the steps here on the bottom line, right? So this was the overall business view. And now this is purchase request to purchase order, goods received, and so on and so forth. So you can go through each step, and for each step you will find a lot of monetary and also performance optimization that is helping you to identify which are the areas to work on. Let's go through that. So now let's go through the next steps. I will, because it takes a little bit too much time if I'm going also into the user experience, but there's also a user experience section that is looking at the user behavior. So that was the analysis of the processes. Now let's take a look at how we can enhance these processes, because we have analyzed the processes, we have identified a lot of bottlenecks. The question is, of course, what is it that I can do around it? So let's look into the enhanced topic. So I've now taken one process. It is displayed here as in a classical BPMN logic, and this is the procurement for direct materials, right? And now I would like to dive a little bit deeper into this process. I would like to, for instance, start to edit this process, and for instance, add a new step by creating now or implementing also a document creation into this process. So I can do this simply by just entering here for instance, the purchase requisition as a document I would like to embed into this process. And just by doing this, I'm now having here a new document, a new element in the process, and adopted the process. I can also edit the process by embedding other capabilities of the system. So what you can see here on the left-hand side, the system also is connected. Of course, the Signavio is connected to your whole landscape. So out of the landscape, I can now also connect a system and the respective process in the system into this process. So for instance, here, I'm now adding a link to a SAP ERP system that is in my landscape, and this change request for the purchase order is then linked to that system where this change happens. So the important thing is now that I can now collaborate with other people on these changes. So what we are seeing here is that after I've changed this process, I can now, for instance, submit this process to approval for other people in my organization, and they will also then be able to look into the process in Signavio, and they can work on, or they can approve this document or this process, or also change it. Let me jump over the details of this collaboration. Because now the next topic I would like to look at in the enhanced area is really how can I really now start to improve the process, looking at solution capabilities, and also looking at general process recommendations. So what you're seeing here is based on the process analysis that we have been doing, the system has created recommendations. and it has created correction recommendations that we have collected in the system based on the best practices that we are having. And so for the processes analyzed in my example here, the system came up with this 41 improvement recommendations. They are always rated by the impact it will have and by the effort that we think is there to implement that change. If we are now filtering this a little bit on transactions, transaction recommendations, then the list is getting a little bit smaller and easier to read. And how does this look like? So when we are now selecting the first one, the finding was open purchase orders were found where the planned delivery date is at least 1 year in the past, right? So a purchase order item is there, but it has never been delivered. And so the solution that we are having there in our software is an automatic completion date setting that you can call. So if you're now clicking onto the solution, then you will see the recommended action. This is again the details of the problem. So you can see the recommended action here described in detail. Call a specific transaction and edit these elements in the table, and then the new solution will be used. Let's look into another recommendation, and this is automation. So one of the other findings was then that more than 3,000 open items were blocked for payment. And so this is why invoice verification did not run through. And here we are also having a nice ABAP report now built into the solution that can also supported by machine learning work on these blocked orders, blocked items. And if you're moving forward, this is again the details of the challenge that you had. And show recommended action is then here again a description what you can do to change this blocking element. This is how the solution has been offering to enhance the documents. Now, in the last topic, I also wanted to show shortly is how we can really leverage now the Signavio capabilities to work on the design, and we will also see some future capabilities there. So first of all, you can always compare how you are doing a process today with how the process is being documented in our best practices, and launch the best practices directly here from the Signavio tool. And this is, as you're seeing, something that will come in the next release very, very soon. What we're also implementing here is the use of AI, right? So you're now building a process. You would like to leverage our best practices, and you would like to get help from the system, right? So this is why you will enter. Oops. It's always having a little bit of time lag until it comes. So you're asking the system for support. I would like to optimize procurement thanks to predictive analysis and collaboration. So that's already quite a broad question I'm asking to the system, right? But good luck, because this is a demo. No, this is not cheated. It's a reality. The system is coming with ideas, right? Based on such a general question, Signavio using or working with the LLM model on our best practices is coming with a proposal. So it's coming now with a best practice that you can insert into your model that will improve exactly that challenge. And I can now look into the detail of this process here, and I can also even link to additional best practices that are there. And now I can really I can also see what are S/4HANA capabilities I can bring into the game as well, right? So the first thing was linking to an optimized process, and now in this view, for my challenge, I will see what are the S/4HANA capabilities that I can apply to tackle that challenge, right? So system found eight S/4HANA capabilities that are addressing exactly that purchase order related problem that I'm having. And if I'm going into these here in the demo, we are now not going into the details of the capabilities, but into the automation example, for instance, because what we have built in S/4HANA, for instance, is that purchase order requisitions can be directly created out of an Excel. Well, people can in an Excel collect a lot of data, and then out of this Excel you can read in the data automatically, but of course then semantically proved into the system. And if I'm selecting this recommendation, normally, yeah. So this I was jumping over. If I'm selecting that recommendation, I'm getting the details here. This is the create purchase order requisitions from Excel, and I can also directly identify how I could implement that into my system.